Hello, everyone. IMS welcomes you all to the webinar series, Future You, Set Your Career Compass Right with Experts Insight. And this is your host, Kalyani. So today our topic is Build a Career in Human Resource Management. And in this webinar, you'll find out about what are the different types of job roles you get in HR management, career growth in human resource management, top recruiters in HR. Can an HR role take you to top management? Why HR, the kind of skill sets that are a good fit for this role, and more. So let's welcome our speaker today. We have Nisha Atey. She's a senior manager HR at Infosys Limited. Nisha is an alumna of TISS. She has worked as an HR professional in some of the top firms such as Abbott, Kotak Mahindra Bank, Future Group, and Bajaj Auto Limited. Welcome, Nisha Atey, and thank you so much for being here today for this session. So let's start from the beginning. So, okay, your career trajectory. So can you tell us, like, what made you decide that you want to pursue human resource management as your career path? Was there any particular trigger for the same? Did you choose TISS after deciding to pursue HRM, or was it the other way around? So let's talk about your journey.
All right. So
right from the beginning.
All right. So maybe I'm going to disappoint you here right in the start.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted to be a print journalist, and I'll tell you, I think it's a coincidence or what has happened, but I was applying. I mean, generally all this journalism exams will happen somewhere around June, July, and the list seats are very limited. And one of my friends in my graduation day, she was applying for TISS, and she was like, Nisha, if you apply, then my mom will allow me to apply because we come from small towns. It's like, so she's from Bhubaneswar, I'm from Jamshedpur, and then Bombay is a big no-no because it's a big town, it's a mega city. So
correct. Yeah.
if you apply, I shall apply, and then only I'm going to get the permission. So that's how I applied for TISS.
Okay.
Fortunately, unfortunately, I cleared and she couldn't. And
Okay.
I was thinking twice, should I or should I not? Then everyone I spoke with, they're like, "Are you crazy? You do not want to take up TISS?" So that's how I landed up in HR and TISS.
Okay.
Nothing
Okay.
is
Okay. Yeah. So I'm sure there are a lot of people out there who have this kind of a question that, as in, how do you decide even what's the function, what's the role that you want to get in? So for those people, of course, we will be talking about all the different job roles, the career progression and everything in HR. But before that, to create that foundation, if you can just tell us, how do you decide that this is the function that I want to get in? How do they even choose the roles, the functions where they will find their bearing finally? Yeah.
So I think talking to seniors, talking to people in the industry helps a lot. Many times, and I'm not too sure if it was the confusion when we were doing MBA because the information were lacking in terms of the general availability of all of these, right? Like having the seminar, never used to have.
Yeah.
So what we used to like TISS, I didn't want to take it up. I'm being very frankly because I didn't know what is the importance of it, and there were the kind people around me who told me why you should take it up, and the kind of person you are, you should be picking it up. So I'm saying and now the information is available so freely, and there are so many people, and there's this huge networking site called LinkedIn. I'm like, I've not seen that kind of view there. Okay, so I think it's a huge leverage. You can really leverage on that. One is many people like TISS is one place where you will have to go into specialization right from the first year.
Correct.
However, all other MBA colleges, be it the IMS or the XLRIs or any of them, they give you that window of 1 year where you take up all the subjects, and then you start developing the liking that and you have that liking. Okay, I'm mostly inclined towards sales. I'm mostly inclined towards marketing. I'm mostly inclined towards finance, and therefore that helps you to decide. For us, TISS means 2 years straight into HR, and therefore I think it's a good mentor, having a good mentor whom you look up to, having someone whom you can bounce back and sounding mirror. I think it helps to decide where you want to, because many a time and right now there's so many options available, it's just too confusing. The more options you have, the more confused you can get. So I think you need to have one sounding board, you need to have one mentor who will talk you through, who will make you understand what it is, and then you also as the time goes by, I think you will start exploring and liking what you want and pick it up. So that's my take on it.
Yeah. Okay. So were you working before TISS, or was it? So were you a fresher when you applied for
I
TISS?
was a fresher.
Okay,
So
you're
I
a fresher. So you had no idea where you're getting, what you like. You just know that, okay, I'm here. Okay.
I knew myself that if I start working, I'm not going to be in my job. I'll get addicted to earning. So
Okay.
I might have to finish all my studies before I get into a job. So that was
Right.
my inclination.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So can you now take us through your career trajectory very briefly, because you've worked with as a HR person in so many different industries. So yeah. So let's talk about that. As in, first, of course, let's talk about your career trajectory. What happened, and how did you end up in Future Group or in Kotak Bank or in Abbott, and then now Infosys. Yeah. So.
So we were I don't know how many of the current generation know about the 2008 recession, but we were the batch who got.
They've been reading. They've been all preparing for their GDBI and everything. So yeah, they've been reading
So
stuff.
we were the batch that got hit, and that was one of the biggest recessions of all times. And we were the batch where TISS had experimented taking 68 students. Otherwise, it used to have around 35 to 40. And that was the max they used to take. And HR, when any industry, when any kind of a recession or a downturn happens in an economy, HR jobs are the first one to be cut. So we were a batch of 63, and we got really hit by the recession. And trust me or not, I was one of the top performers in class. But I, being not very vocal person, not a very I'm not the person who will go and shout in the GDs to get my slot, all right? So I'm not the one who. So I was one of the last person to be placed during this whole turmoil that is happening, and the recession is happening. And while this has placement in 0 days, most of it they will have. Our placement went on for 3 months. Literally, it went on for 3 months. So that was the kind of recession we got hit by, and thankfully, all of us got placed. That's the silver lining to all of it. So I started my career with Future Group, and whatever I got, I thought I was thankful that I still ended up getting a job. So I started my career with Future Group, and I got into core retail. So everyone says if you're from a top B school, you should get into something high flying and all. And I remember one of our professors who said, you should dirty your hand. You should know how to do the Xeroxes. All right. You should know how to fill up the forms, PF forms and all. You should not go when you want to respect for anything you do. You need to know everything. All right. So that's where we started in Future Group. I started retail. So I used to actually go and sit in the employment exchange. And in retail, I mean, the qualification you require for the ground staff is actually 10th pass, 12th pass. So I used to recruit a lot of them. And in a day, I used to do 100 interviews. So that kind of a job I got into. Learned a lot within Future Group. We then at that point of time it was the Congress government, and we had something known as National Rural Livelihood Mission that was giving employment for the poorest of the poor in the country. And I got into this startup known as Future Shop. I was one of the core members who got into the startup, and I was the one who actually formed this whole company with 12 members to start with, to register for the PF, all of those things. And I really learned a lot. I mean, and if you are in a startup, you need to do everything, right? From the admin job to maybe come and open the door of the office, because there is so much to do. There is only small people. So a lot of learning there, and a lot of grounding, literally grounding, because when you see because you're actually reaching out to the poorest of the poor of the country, right? So grounding work. But after a point of time, I got burnt out with so much of stuff. I decided I wanted to settle into something more stable, and therefore I made a shift to pharmaceutical, and I joined Abbott. And Abbott at that point of time, it was a Piramal acquisition. So Piramal got acquired by Abbott. So again, a lot of HR business partnering role I did, a lot of corporate HR. So because one thing about HR is if you're in the corporate office, you get a lot of flavor of what is happening, and you get involved in a lot of corporate level work, all right? That is happening rolled out. So while I was an HR business partner, and I used to handle one of the biggest numbers of employee base in terms of the business. If you are in the pharmaceutical sector, the business that is chronic and non-chronic. So chronic, if you have to say, is something like oncology or a cardiology, and then you have HR business partners aligned to them, and non-chronic is like general medicines and general surgery and all of those things. So you're cough and cough. So those are how the business is. So I was handling one of the biggest businesses of Abbott and also some of the non-traditional ones. A lot of learning. I did. Then they had a lot of corporate programs in terms of tie-ups with a lot of IMS for executive MBA. We had started something known as fast track MBA growth plans, known as sales management trainees. I was part of all of these things. Learned a lot. And we introduced something at that point of time. There's one HRMS system known as Workday. So I was one who, and it was a introduction in the US, which got they rolled out in 130 countries, and I was the one who did all of that, introducing that HRMS. A lot of learning, but then after all of these got done, I got a little bored. So I'm a person who wants to keep having something new, and otherwise I get bored with the monotony. So I got bored, and then I thought, okay, let me try out something new. So I decided to join Kotak. Again, I was an HR business partner, and I was again in a banking sector. There is something known as assets and liabilities. Asset is everything that is into lending, so your home loans, your credit cards, your business loans, and liability is your bank branches where you go. All right, so I was handling the asset. Again, it's a very volatile. It's again sales because there's a lot of churn. So I was handling the asset business nationally. And then ING Vaisya, I don't know, wherever I go, there is this merger acquisition that keeps happening. So ING Vaisya got acquired by Kotak, and I got the whole piece around the merger acquisition and getting all the employees from ING for the asset business. A huge learning there. Did a lot of corporate stuff again, apart from HR business partnering. Then something came up with in terms of Bajaj Auto, and they said, why don't you head talent acquisition for us? And I have not done talent acquisition purely as a role. I've done so many things. Talent acquisition is part of the role, part of my HR business partnering, a part of, say, I have done a lot of mergers, acquisitions, startups, but talent acquisitions as such as a role I had not done. And when it came up, I said, okay, it's a new challenge, I should pick it up. So I took up talent. I started heading talent acquisition for Bajaj Auto, did that for quite some time. But and at that same point, while I was not looking at, I realized that at the same point of time, this thing came up in Infosys, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion, and that was not a very niche field at the time. In 2018, no one was talking about it, and I said, if I get into it right now, I'll be one of the I mean, no one has it there.
Correct.
So and that made me shift cities. I mean, I was basically based out of Bombay, but because of that role that I wanted to pick up, I moved into Infosys. So last 4 years, I've been DEI. I'm into ESG as well right now. So I'm doing environmental, social, and governance, which is again an upcoming field in the field of HR.
Right.
My portfolio, and I've been shifting sectors. I've been shifting roles. I've been shifting. And it's been very fulfilling. I mean, the last 13 years that I've worked.
So tell me something. So in human resource management, is it industry agnostic or is it pretty much similar? Even though, in your your roles were very different, but as such, is it very from one industry to the other? Is the change very drastic? For human resource, as in the role and the function?
So HR as a function is actually industry agnostic. That's why I have been able to shift. But to be a good HR, I would say, because every business and every industry has its own dynamics. So a retail is very different because you have people on the floor there, right there. You can do a lot of stuff there. If you get into a sales organization, it's people, no one is sitting there. You have to actually reach them out in the field. And then the systems are different. So if I was working on something known as SAP, so SAP system in Future Group, I had to move to Workday in Abbott, to Oracle in, say, Kotak, and then another system in IT, because this is an Infosys. So you need to learn a lot of different things, and you need to learn. And if you have to be a good HR, you need to learn the business of business. Otherwise, what happens is you will keep doing the role. So something like a center of excellence role. I'll give you a basic difference as how work changes, though it is industry agnostic. So if you are an HR business partner, you have to work very closely with the business. So what you need to do is you need to understand the business. So if you still ask me what Abbott and what are the therapies and what are the molecules that make that medicine, I still remember it because I was so involved in the business, and I could stand up with my national heads and say, this is the right thing to do, this is not the right thing to do, because, and they used to listen to me because they knew I know what is happening in the ground level. Whereas in asset, I knew who is selling what kind of loan and what is the margins and all of those things. That's the difference of what an HR business partner make to a role. If you're getting into a center of excellence role, supposedly, when I say center of excellence role is something like an DEI, or say learning and development, or saying compensation and benefit, then the dynamics is not too different. I mean, you are very concentrated in that one specialized role. So it may not change much, but if you're an HR business partner, it actually changes, and you need to quickly learn and get into the role. So while it is industry agnostic, many people are not able to change because of the whole piece around changing industry and learning new things and pick up. It's not easy. It's a huge learning curve every time you change an industry.
Okay. There is a question about in today's world, business analytics is very popular. Can you please elaborate its importance for an HR professional? Is it a good idea to take dual specialization in HR and business analytics?
It is. I'm saying everything right now is digital, everything is database. I myself, while I'm doing DEI, which is extremely people kind of a thing, if you see as a term, or if you see, it's a very people-centric role.
Correct.
But I would say 60% of my portfolio is on data analytics, because if I'm not going back to the business saying, this is what your numbers are looking like, they are never going to support me to say, Nisha, no. I mean, there's always a pushback because they have their own financial KRAs and they have to drive businesses and all. So a data, and it's one of the upcoming fields again. I'm saying how ESG, how data analytics is one of the upcoming fields in HR. And one, if you know your numbers, trust me, no one is going to push you back, and no one is going to make a fool of you. I mean, So I have been able to do a lot of things at Infosys, and at Infosys we are 360,000 employees. It's a huge employee. And you cannot move things if you do not know your numbers right, business by business, center by center, geo by geo. Until unless you are able to pinpoint, these are the things, these are the analytics, this is your growth, this is your trend, this is where you're doing well, not doing well, no one is going to take you seriously. So yes, it's one of the good things one should pick up.
Okay. Can you tell us right from entry level to a senior level, how does the HR management role, it flourishes in a company?
So I would say it is very similar to any other function. It will grow in a very similar fashion. You can, and then you have all the liberty. So while HR is majorly by the external world look as only recruitment, it's not so. There's only one vertical. There is this whole HR business partnering. There's the backends, which is known as HR shared services. Again, it's one of the big field. Then there is HR analytics. Then there is all the center of excellence. So you have compensation and benefits. You have performance management. You have diversity, equity, inclusion. You have employee engagement. You have learning and development, OD interventions. All right. So these are multiple things. And within HR, either you can go vertically. So you pick up, say, I want to take up a COE role. One of the I mentioned. You go vertical in that. Or you can keep shifting laterally and expand your horizon. So I was like, supposedly you saw me, I started with a startup. And I did a very basic entry level role where I was doing everything for the organization to getting into a mid-management role and saying, I will do lateral hiring for national level managers and the area level managers, and I will do some of the corporate stuff. So it can be a mix and match of role. There is no one career trajectory. I mean, it's totally upon the individual. How do you want to expand your career? So for me, it was always learning more. Some people are very focused. They are very clear. I can say I was not very clear what I wanted, but some people are very clear that I want only comp and ben, and they go real well in that, and they will therefore grow from an India level to a APAC level to a global level. I have been expanding in terms of the width of my experience. So it's an individual choice, I would say. Laterally, or you want to go vertically.
So if somebody wants to go vertically, as in, for the top management, so what exactly? So for an HR professional, can they really become one of the Yeah, leadership, take up a leadership position in a
Yes,
company.
HR directors or HR heads
Okay.
who have become CEO of companies. So you can absolutely do that. I mean, you may want to go and research, but there are
Yeah.
those examples as well. So
Okay.
you and typically, if I'm telling you, that's what I was telling you. If you know the business, then
Hmm.
there's no stopping you, right? I mean,
Right.
you can do that. You can become a business head also. So
Hmm.
there is, I think, there's a lot of myth that HR people cannot become business
Yeah.
heads, but
Hmm. Hmm.
I
Hmm.
think it is not true. So
Okay.
you can go from and it's the growth is if you are doing well. I mean, there I'm telling you again, this field is somewhere. If you build your credibility with business, if you build your credibility, your visibility is much higher than any other field. I would say, because you work so closely with the senior leaders, you work so closely with every top level leaders. Because of your
Hmm.
visibility, your growth actually becomes faster
Correct.
because you're working
Correct.
across functions. It is not only
Hmm.
so exclusively for a sales guy. Only that salesperson has the visibility through the
Yeah.
national manager. But you are working across functions, so your
Hmm.
visibility in terms of who you are, what you deliver, what
Hmm.
you can deliver is much higher if you compare against. So if you again take a finance role, again they are very
Hmm.
focused. They don't have a lot of
Yeah.
business interaction. Whereas
Hmm.
vis-a-vis,
Hmm.
HR
Hmm.
has a lot of business interaction. It has to interact with a lot of people. So you can grow
Okay.
really fast in your career
Hmm.
if you have the right, if you made the right career moves, if you make you have built up your credibility, if you know the business, it's very easy to grow in the career ladder. So
Okay, 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 great. Coming back to that whole business analytics angle, how exactly ML and AI is affecting HR functions? It's definitely affecting everything, every other jobs, every other functions in a corporate environment. So, how exactly is it having does it have an adverse effect, or is it a good thing? What is it? Yeah, how is
so
it
I come
right now?
I
Hmm.
come from
Hmm.
a IT
Yeah.
industry, all right.
Yes. Yeah.
With
Yeah. Yeah.
ML and AI, I mean, this is again this huge fear that they
Hmm.
are going to replace jobs, but there
Yes.
are people who need to code all those ML, okay, machine learning, all
Okay.
right. There are
Yeah.
people
Hmm.
who need to automate all of these things.
Hmm.
So while COVID struck, and I think we have expanded number of people we hired. I'm telling you, in Infosys in 2021, we hired close to 1 lakh people, close to 1
Okay.
lakh people.
Okay.
Because the demand for AI and ML increased so much. So I'm saying, and it complements. So I am saying, while I do a lot of data analytics, and
Hmm.
it's a huge churn of data. If you're talking about 3.5 lakh people, and
Yeah.
if you're
Hmm.
a trend over 10 years, you can imagine the number of data points that I need to go through to come
Correct.
up with an analysis, right? So
Hmm.
an automated learning and automation and a machine learning helps you to with your work. It's not going to take
Okay.
away your work. All right, it's going to
Okay.
complement you. So again, it's
Hmm.
a misnomer, it's a myth. Okay, so
Hmm.
I may say that maybe in a heavily it may take away jobs where it is a heavily man for
Huh.
say workforce dependent industry. So
Correct.
supposedly
Yeah.
I'm saying Bajaj,
Hmm.
and you have this whole assembly line to produce one pulsar or a KTM, all right, and
Hmm.
therefore you brought in machines over there to
Hmm.
aid you. So maybe
Right.
you will from 100 people assembling one pulsar, and who is
Hmm.
doing the nut and bolt, and 1 minute that
Yes.
pulsar comes out, you
Hmm.
may now need 80 people to do that pulsar, all right. But maybe because you are producing that pulsar faster because of that machine that comes in, what happens is you can have two assembly lines, and therefore you are
Therefore,
giving more than the
yeah. Hmm. Hmm.
consumer-led market, right? India is an extremely consumer-led market, so you are able to
Right.
deliver more. So it's
Correct.
not going to take away jobs; it's only going to complement it.
Hmm.
That's my take on it. I'm
Hmm.
sure people have different point of view, but
Mm.
what I have
But how is
seen,
it
my
affecting human resource, as in the for HR jobs? Is it having any adverse effect?
impacted.
No.
I don't think it has impacted.
Okay.
Um, my own view and my
Mm.
opinion is it has helped us with
Okay.
all the machine learning and AI. It has helped us deliver much better to what we used to keep sitting and doing our
Yeah.
manual.
Okay.
It has helped
Yeah.
us much
Mm,
more. It has helped
biometric
us
and
evolve.
everything. Yeah. Correct.
It has
Mhm.
helped us evolve much more as a function. So
Right.
I don't.
Right. Okay. Okay. Let's take a few questions. Yeah. Is there any downward slope in the field of HR on the basis of job role availability in the industry? As there is employee layoff in the corporate sector.
So this employee layoff is only working, I think it's an extremely US
Yeah.
phenomenon. Not yet heard that happening in India. And
Okay.
also when it is happening in the US, I don't know how many of you are following it really closely. It is more of the C-suite and the top level that is getting. So what has happened is when the economy is doing well, what happens
Mm,
is you tend to grow faster into all of these top level jobs, and then it becomes extremely top heavy. So one point of time when the economy is not doing well, the corporates decide to shed the top heavy load. That's what
mm,
happens most of the time, all right? I don't think you have heard. Okay, in India, what has happened is it has struck the startups, but startup has always been that way. I mean, startup is
mm.
an extremely high risk job. So it will give you, if you are in the right startup, it can make you wealthy overnight, or it is going to impact you depending on
Yeah.
how your startup is,
Yeah.
what business you are in. So
Correct.
startup has always been that way. It has not been hit by recession. If you see, even when while we are also doing what we are, because and we are heavily dependent as an IT industry. If you see, we are heavily dependent on, because all our jobs, we get jobs from the US, UK, and the European
Mm,
extra
mm.
Western markets, right? But we have not, neither TCS, neither Wipro, neither Infosys has laid off any people, and we are extremely, again, workforce heavy. So TCS would have somewhere around 6.5 lakh employees. We have 3.5 lakh employees. We have not laid off. If industries like us are if we're not laying off, I don't think it is hitting us. So I
Okay.
don't think
Yeah.
India's job has been impacted. No, I mean
Okay.
I think that we are. And yes, last year has been extremely volatile with the Ukraine war, and
Mm,
now and then
mm,
followed
mm,
by
mm,
the US
mm,
recession. But India has not been impacted as adversely as
mm. As
it is
some of the other
projected.
countries. Yeah. Mm, mm.
Not
Okay.
sure. It has not been.
Yeah, there is a question. I did my BE in biotech with currently 2+ years of experience in the pharma industry and would like to pursue HR and work for a biotech related industry like pharma environment. I would like to get into L&D specifically. So can you please let me know on the L&D specialization at TISS and its important in these industries? Which other HR roles have a good scope for biotech industries? That's a long question. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to. Okay.
Mm,
So
mm.
see, anyone can enter into HR field. So I think I'll tell
Okay.
you, my batch we had only, I think, minuscule 2-3% who were coming from arts. I have done English majors, all right,
Mm, mm.
and then 95% are engineers who will come from all
Right.
these big
Correct.
IITs out here.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm, mm.
And then there'll be small minuscule who are from commerce and all of those things.
Yeah.
So, and the thing of you can go and take up HR. Yes, you can go and take up HR because there is
Mm.
no one field that you need to pick up because it's the management degree that you're pursuing.
Right.
You need to get about getting into biotech specifically. So you'll have to look into any of these science firm, science-based firm, or a pharmaceutical-based firm. That's the only
Mm,
place if you want to really get into biotech. And I don't
mm.
know why. If you want to get into management, then why is this piece around getting into biotech and
Yeah.
industry? You can get into if you're wanting
Mm,
to specialize in L&D, you can get across any industry. While biotech, maybe you think you may be able to add some more
mm,
flavor and some more. Maybe you can contribute to it. But I think L&D is again across industries. So why would you want to limit yourself only to a pharma industry or a science-based industry, right? Something like as a biocon or any of them, right? It can be
mm,
across. It can be across. So don't limit yourself because if the and I would suggest this to every person who's aiming for something. Don't get too narrowed down by what you want right now. You should keep your mind open and
mm,
explore. And I tell a lot of people who reach out to me, I think you should be open to be mobile. That is the biggest thing that will help you move in your career. Mobile in terms of
mm,
location, mobile in terms of what you're getting as a role, mobile in terms of the roles you're picking up, or the cities you're picking up, or the companies you're picking up, sectors. You should be mobile. I mean, it's the start of your career. You have another 30 years to do what you
mm.
really want to. So I
Yeah.
think keep your options open, and then you narrow down once you know. So I don't know if
Mm.
I've answered all the questions that were asked, but
Yes, yeah, 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 yes. Okay. What are the skill sets that are required for being a good HR to excel in HR management? So maybe you can talk about three hard skills and three soft skills specifically that you require to excel.
all right. So I think one has to be extremely empathetic. One, I feel.
So that's a soft skill.
Upskill. Yeah. I
Mm-hmm.
think the
Okay.
basis of, see, many times what happens in corporate, we tend to take the side of the management. But I need, as an HR professional, you need to strike the right balance.
Mm.
What is good, what will be good for the employees, and what is good for the business. You cannot
Right.
always take the side of management because they are telling you to do what you do. And I'm
Mm.
saying that's one way of building your credibility. It's not
Okay.
always, and you will build credibility with the employees when you are able to empathize with them, when you
Mm.
understand what they are going through, and not only going to say, okay, the management has decided and therefore you are supposed to do this. You need to
Correct.
stand. So this whole piece around building your credibility and empathy is, I think, one has to have that.
Okay.
One
So
has
one
to
is
have a
empathy.
huge, yeah. And I'm saying, if because we are evolving so fast, and
Mm.
a good eye for detail, and it has taken me places in terms of, if I had the eye for detail, I think it has really helped me to find out what exactly has happened, because when you are dealing with people, there are so much of emotions that are coming into play. When there are dealing with, supposedly, I'm saying we are trying to lay off a person or asking a person to leave the organization because of disciplinary issues, right? And if you do not have the eye for detail, and if the manager is going to keep saying that this person is not right, and you are not really going in and seeing what exactly is happening, you are going to do injustice to one person at the end of the day. All right. So, an eye for detail, what you really understand from the whole situation, having a balanced point of view. Hard skills, I'm not saying there has to be really very core hard skills, because, okay,
Mm.
you will go and pursue a management degree. It will teach
Mm.
you some subject. If you're taking up, say, comp and ben, it will tell you what are the different compa ratios, that all of those things. So every
Mm.
specialization will have its own hard skill to come with. L&D will give you different kinds of theories that come up and all of those things, which you will apply. But I'm saying, as an HR professional, your eye for detail, your empathy, your balanced view, I don't, and it comes with over time.
Mm.
But how do you deal with it? Many of us shy away from something known as, say, a huge part of our industries are manufacturing industry, or an automotive industry, or a consumer-led industry, the HULs and the PNGs of the world, right? And then there is something known as employee relation, which is dealing
Mm.
with the union, dealing with the workers. And
Mm.
are you
Mm.
conceptually right? Do you know what does the Industrial Dispute Act talks about? What is the worker compensation talks about? What is all of these things? So you need to know these things, because until unless you know your stuff right, you know the laws right, people are going to take you for a
Mm.
trick. So I think conceptually one has to be extremely strong. Whatever field you take up, compensation, benefit, L&D, OD, you have to be conceptually right, and then the soft skill adds on to it.
Mm. But does it matter if you are not a people person? Do you really need to be a people person in HR, or is it okay if
If
what
you're
if
picking up
yeah.
any of the COE roles, I'm saying compensation and benefit,
Hmm.
you don't interact with people, right? You are doing
Okay.
compensation and benefit as a role, studying a lot of data,
Hmm.
then you do not need that thing, all right? If you're doing
Okay.
analytics, you're
Hmm.
not actually reaching out to people and you're doing analytics and giving it to a lot of internal stakeholder, right?
Hmm.
But if you're into an HR business partnering role, if you're saying a learning and development where you are actually reaching out to massive people and asking them, what do you really want? And until unless you don't understand their needs, you're not going to do the right intervention or the right program or right offering to them. So then it gets required. I'm not saying everyone has to be a people person.
Yeah.
I've seen extremely straightforward, curt people doing very well in HR as well.
Hmm.
But it can
Yeah.
happen. It adds,
Yeah.
and people are much more comfortable coming back to you. So at the end of the day, they want to come back to an HR. See, they will never come back to you when they're happy. They will always come back to you when there is an issue.
Yeah.
And you are not, you don't have that mind space or the heart space, you are not going to do justice to that individual.
Okay.
There's a
Okay,
so that's
but okay, there's also a myth that if you're not okay, if you're not very good in math, then maybe HR would be a better option, because obviously in the all the other functions you need a lot of mathematics. So this is actually a myth. Can you please bust this myth that how much
I think
mathematics is really
only
necessary
the finance guy use math. And that also in systems, I think.
yes,
They
yeah,
don't
yeah,
really
yeah,
use math because the
yeah.
system is again learning how they take up
So
on that.
how much of mathematics is part of HR, and how much comfortable you need to be with numbers to really excel in this field?
I'm saying you cannot do maths, you can be
Mm,
an HR, and
mm.
you can do a lot of maths, and you can be a very good HR. So I'm saying again, I do a lot of I do a lot of analytics.
Okay, yeah.
Uh, all my earlier roles, I never used to do so much of analytics because it never required, right? My roles never required because it was more of mergers acquisition, HR business partnering, dealing with people, dealing with businesses. This role requires, and I'm telling you, data is HR typically is taken for granted because we don't speak numbers. All right, so
Correct.
we don't speak
Yeah.
numbers. We don't speak facts. We don't speak
Yes.
data. The day you start speaking data and facts and numbers, people will not take you for granted. They know you mean business, all right. So and the same part is people think that HR doesn't need all of these skills. You do need. You don't have it, it's okay. You don't have it, but I think you can actually make a huge shift in your own credibility building if you know your data right. And nowadays you don't really need to know maths. There is a lot of Excel sheets and there
Excel
are a
sheets,
lot.
yeah. But you need to know Excel really well then. Yeah, yeah.
But I did not know Excel as a fresher. When you get into corporate, there are a lot of these workshops that will happen that will teach you Excel. So you don't really need to know Excel, right? I mean, no one knows Excel. Even if I learned Excel in, say, Abbott, I was put into this 2-day training and they taught us real high level Excel. I don't remember any of this because I was not using those skills.
Okay.
Unless you're using those skills in Excel skills, these are all learned skills, right? So
Correct. Okay.
I think
Okay.
it's not that you need to be very good at maths, but you need to know data. So, yeah.
Okay, let's take a few questions again. Yeah. Hello, ma'am. It was great hearing your story. Very inspiring. I did Ontario College graduate certificate in human resources management from Canada, 1 year in duration. I have a year and a half experience related to the same field. Now I am in India due to some personal reasons. Need to know if this credential is equivalent to the MBA HR of India, PGP HR, PGTM HR. Is this credential going to lend me a good paying job in HR in India, or should I prepare for B schools entrances of India and pursue a 2 years program and then involve myself in the workforce? My future goal is to have a career in HR.
See, if you already have a working experience and an MBA degree, you can approach corporates laterally, and you should be able to get into a corporate. I don't see why you cannot get into a corporate because many of the Indian corporates value the degrees that are from the say foreign university. All right, I mean there are typical courses and there are typical programs that actually go and hire from the external university. It's not an India-based university. So I don't see a reason for you to do another MBA because you already have that skill and you've already used that skill doing it.
Yes.
So there is no need for you to do another MBA until unless you're not are able to get through anywhere, which I don't think should be an issue. So don't get into another MBA. Why would you waste another 2 years into an MBA? You might as well start applying.
Correct. Yeah. So probably start applying now and then see for another year or two how it's going with the work, with the job, and then probably decide whichever way.
But I don't think you should be doing it right now at this point of time. You already have it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay. There's a question about, I was going to ask you regarding the skill set. So when you spoke about people person, is it necessary to be an extrovert, good with people skills to flourish your career in HR? Is there any space for introverts in HR?
Oh, ask me, and I don't think people know about MBTI, Myers-Briggs. I'm a high-level introvert. I mean, in that MBTI, I am one of the highest level introverts. And trust me, I have done well for myself.
Yes.
So it's not a necessity to, and I feel I have done well for myself. I don't know how people feel, but see, introverts, I know. I mean, it takes a lot of energy, and there's a huge drain and I'll tell you my own, and I'm being very frank here. When I used to do all of these HR business partnering role, right now I don't I have to interact with people because it's a COE function. And I'm telling you, 20, 30 calls a day and talking with people. At the end, I used to be totally exhausted. I don't want to talk with anyone at home. I used to be at that point juncture. But somewhere, being an introvert, we are very good listeners. We are very good observers. All right, and that adds on to the thing that you bring onto your job as an HR professional. People come back to you, and I'm not a person who will go to a person to talk to them by self. I mean, introverts don't really go themselves and talk. And people see you, and they I don't know. There's some aura or what it is around introverts. They will come and talk to you, start talking to you, and they'll talk about their problems. And because you're a good listener, you are an empathizer, you observe a lot, you are able to give them the right solutions. You're able to listen to them. You're able to empathize. So I don't think you need to be an extrovert. being an introvert, you can do an extremely good job. So don't worry about an introvert or extrovert.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I'm a person who likes to do something new and creative. Monotony gets me bored. So should I go for HR or marketing? Well, if you've been listening to her, Nisha, her entire career has been more interesting than many marketing professionals. But anyway, yeah. What would you like
Right.
to add?
So I don't want to break the myths of about marketing jobs,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
these are all MBA aspirants, but many marketing jobs across corporate India. I'm
Hmm.
not talking about is about when we talk about marketing, it's very less marketing. It's more about okay, I don't know, I'm not trying to belittle or
Yeah.
anything, but I'm
Yeah.
just giving you a reality thing.
Correct.
We
Yeah.
work with a lot of agencies, all right. So any of the marketing, I mean, you are not, because you are not a specialized person in saying designing an ad or designing a campaign. You are not a person, you are basically a management student, right? So whatever marketing work that you get into, it can be termed as marketing, but you're working with a lot of agencies, all right? And the agency are the ones who are doing the creative work. You are only approving it, all
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So I'm not too sure how much you can use your creative skill there. If you want to be a person who is creative, and which is why if you see my career, Abbott is the only place where I worked in an MNC, because MNC comes with a lot of these centralized roles. I mean, so it is Chicago based, and therefore there's a lot of thing that comes from the top. So the corporate office which says you need to do something like this, and therefore
Okay.
I always choose to work for an Indian industry, because there's a lot of scopes to try out new things and experiment
Okay.
with new things, because it's an Indian and an India corporate, and therefore you can always pitch for yourself saying that we want to do this and this is going to benefit the organization. They allow you, which generally doesn't, there's not so much of a leeway in a multinational corporation, because there are those set things, interventions that you need to run across all countries, because they're trying to run operations. You cannot keep
Correct.
doing what you
Yeah.
want. There will be very little scope of doing in locally in that region. So this marketing, and most of the people when they join marketing, a very small percentage, say around 10 to 20%, will land up actually in the marketing job. Most of them get into a sales job, all
Yes.
right,
Yeah.
itself. So choose accordingly,
Yeah.
therefore.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Let's talk about profile building. So right now, what can our audience do so that they can build on their skill sets, build on the kind of qualities that are required, that add value for their profiles for HR functions,
All right.
even certifications and all that, whatever is there. Mm.
So I would not suggest to go for any certification, because if you're
Okay.
already aspiring to do an
Hmm.
MBA, and India is again extremely, I don't know. I mean, again, I'm from a DEI field, and I should not. It
Hmm.
should be a
Hmm.
skill-based industry rather than a B school industry where you go and pick up. But because we are so populous, we go for the cream of the cream layer, and we
Okay.
say, okay, we have to pick up from IMA and IMBs and all the top
Hmm. Hmm.
IMs and the
Hmm.
and TISS, because that's a sure shot way of finding out that they are the top talents of the country,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
ideally, it should be a skill base. How good you are in the skill, and therefore I should be able to recruit. Even you are from the remotest of villages, you may have that
Right.
skill, and I should be able to do that. I mean, we are
Hmm.
still to shift that into that space. And I'm saying certification in India may not be required at this point of time if you're pursuing your MBA degree, right?
Hmm.
The skill set, again, I'm saying one important thing, and you should always look for is you should have a right mentor to guide you
Okay.
um, in your journey, because I
Hmm.
have had right mentors when I was looking at, should I go into startup, should I get into a stable company which is a well
Hmm. Hmm.
established company, what is the right career choice to make. And if there is a sounding board, it helps you a lot in terms of, because they come with so much of so many years of experience, right? So if you're able to, I mean, and we may be naive and we go by impulse, and when we are young we go a lot by impulse and what everyone in the peer is doing. So it's the right sounding board helps you a lot. And if you really want to learn about HR, maybe you can pick up some internships. Say, supposedly, now that you have time. I mean, I was
Hmm.
a fresher and I got right into the job, so I didn't have.
Hmm.
And I was actually, and I wanted to become a journalist. So I was actually doing work with Crystal and writing some papers
Yeah.
for them and all of those things.
Okay.
But,
Hmm.
but I'm saying, because that was my inclination. But I'm saying if you want to get a perspective what HR is, maybe you can take some internship, not necessarily a paid internship, where you can actually shadow someone saying what you are doing, what you're learning, get in touch with some HR professional and try finding out what do you exactly do in your role, what has happened, what is the HR in this industry like. So I think speaking with the right people, having the right mentor, certification again, I'm not saying you should be doing, but or getting into an internship will help you build your profile. There's no, and HR is not rocket science, literally. So you don't have to really burn yourself out to get into HR, but you need the right guidance.
What's the difference between talent acquisition and recruitment?
Okay, not really any difference. It's all again, HR is a very heavily jargon-driven industry, so we find new names for everything. But talent acquisition, I think it's an alternate name. I mean, generally we say talent acquisition, and I personally hate the word acquisition because you are dealing with people. What is this term around acquisition? Right? You cannot, and when we call people resources, and again I hate that. Why do we call resources? People are people, right? But again, that's my personal view, and I've been so heavily into inclusion and diversity and all of those things. But these terms really don't really sound very good for me. But people are people, and you need to deal with people as people and not as something as you've acquired them, or they are resources for you. Resources can be anything, say, not people. It can be money, it can be infrastructure, but people are people. So it's therefore we used to call people office rather than talent acquisition, or say
Okay. A lot of people are asking questions about TISSNet as well as the interviews at TISS. Reason being, obviously, TISSNet is next month. So yeah. So even though you took your TISSNet long time back, but the structure has remained pretty much the same as in the general knowledge and all that. So can you just give us maybe a few tips how they should be preparing for that section specifically? Or for TISSNet, whatever you remember. Yeah.
So I don't know. I had never saw my score in TISS, but when you have to prepare for an Excel or say ZAT or a CAT, this is pretty easy to track. But tracking TISS's interview or group discussion is a little different. All right.
Okay. How? Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah.
So again, this comes with and I think this started because of they started with social work, and then the next course they started was an HR course, right?
Okay.
So there is a lot of emphasis on people, and right. So if you see the GD topics for TISS will be very people centric topics. It will not be a very business topic. All right. I remember, I don't recall well, but I got a GD topic as to why manual scavenging is not, should there be manual scavenging or not? Okay. And this is the kind of topic I got for HR, all right? And I don't know if I'm really out of touch. I gave my TISSNet in 2006, but we used to have to give a biography after our exam. We had to give a biography, and that was also an elimination round, all right? Why you want to pursue TISS, and that was an elimination round, okay?
Okay.
And they really go into depth as to why you want to get into something known as human resources. Okay, that had become an elimination route for us. Your GD, what you are speaking in the interview, they see the human side. They literally evaluate many a time. They evaluate on the human side of what you are. Okay, so and I remember Mr. Parshuraman is no more, and I remember when we were in our orientation that he's like. And we kept asking, why do we not call it MBA and why do you call it ME degree and why it is not business management? And a very nice thing he said, and I still remember, and I'm talking about again 13, 15 years back, he said, I don't want to churn out people who are only thinking about business because we have a lot of them, and we need more people who are kind, and we need more people who understand people and therefore doing better for the society. And I can't forget those words from that person. I mean, it has hit me and it remains with me. So I'm saying there's a lot of human angle when you get into this. And I don't know my score, but I think I could score 100%. It's so easy in terms of your written exam. But where you get stuck is your interviews, your GDs, because they literally see you, what you are saying, what is the stuff you are saying. It's not about talking the loudest, but it's about what is the content you bring in when you're talking.
Okay.
So general knowledge, what I used to do is I used to read the paper end to end every day, and that's the only
Every
way
day,
I.
yeah. Because you cannot
That's
prepare for general knowledge in 5 days. You have to continue with it. You have to
So
stay
yeah, I think
consistent within
all
reading.
throughout my and because I in second year I realized that I will get into and as it is I wanted to be a journalist,
Yeah,
so
so you had to read a lot. Yeah.
I had to read a lot. So that's
Mm-hmm.
where I. Uh,
Mm.
but reading the newspaper end to end, I mean, I never liked the sports section, but I did make sure that I'm reading some of the
Mm.
sports section. So
Okay.
yeah, it
Okay.
makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense to read the
Mm.
newspaper every day.
Mm. Can HR professionals gain necessary knowledge to become entrepreneurs?
Entrepreneurs in what sense? I mean, there can be different type of entrepreneurs. A lot of
Yeah, so
people,
it's a
yeah, a lot
very
of
open question. Yeah. Yeah.
yes, you can. I mean, depending on, so you can get into a people entrepreneurship. So supposedly there are a lot of people in HR, and I know in Infosys who were in HR, did a lot of work with employees, and then they went ahead and did startups. And I know this lady who actually takes a whole lot of, so clothes is a huge waste. All right,
Mm,
it adds
mm,
to a lot of landfill. She takes all the old clothes and sell it for 1 rupee for people who
mm.
cannot afford it. Okay, so
Okay.
that's her enterprise, and she's
Okay.
doing very well for it, and she actually recycles clothes. There are a lot of HR people who gets into, say, NGOs. I mean, you need to know what exactly you want to get into, and there's no, I
Mm,
mean, you have the right knowledge. Yeah, there will be a lot of things that come. So it's a very
mm,
open thing, but your field, see, I don't think you should be getting tagged as
mm,
because I'm I cannot do this. I'm in a finance
mm.
business. I cannot do things. It's your own skill set. That's only a thing that is one part of your whole existence, right? Your
Right.
career is one
Yeah.
part of your existence, but then there is
Correct.
so many other that is about you. So it's
Correct.
not about what profession you take up. It's about what you are as a person and what you want to do.
Okay. There's a question about I am an HR aspirant currently interning with Nisha, appeared for my CAT but didn't make it through. Shall I take work experience before jumping into an MBA in HR or have full-time experience? Please guide me through.
So it is totally
Hmm.
your call, I would say. Just because
Hmm.
you couldn't want it's about also.
Hmm.
So when I was doing my, um, I knew my very main reason was if I get into a job, I'm not going to study. I know that.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I have been wanting to do my PhD because I got into a job. I'm not doing my PhD. I knew if I would have done PhD before getting into a job, I would have finished job. So
Yeah.
there are those personal motivations of what drives you. You need to sit and understand what is your driver. You
Hmm.
cannot, and it is very different for every individual. I need to be I wanted to be financially independent as soon as I get out of job and I start
Hmm.
earning. That was
Okay.
one my primary driver. So what is your primary driver? Is
Hmm.
you should be focusing on. Do you have enough of your, say, financial backing? Because nowadays MBA is an
Yes,
extremely
it's an
expensive
expensive. Yeah.
thing. I mean, we did it very sasta, I would say, but I mean,
Yeah.
this is nowadays MBA is an extremely
Yeah.
enough, and there is no right mix. So I have seen more people who have had experience coming back and joining and doing their MBAs, and equal number of freshers doing it. So what
Okay.
is your calling? What do you think you
Hmm.
will be able to do well? Do you have financial, if you have financial backing, and then you say you want to pursue it right now, do it. If you do not have financial backing and you want to earn for yourself before you get into an MBA, and you want more time, and you don't want to lose time. So it's about what are your motivations in life, what drives you, and therefore pick it up.
Hmm.
It is very individual specific. I mean, you can get in touch with me separately. I will help you identify
Yeah.
what you
Hmm.
really want to do.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
it's an individual calling. It cannot be generalized. It cannot be a vanilla flavor for everyone.
Correct.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. How do you analyze whether you are a good fit for an HR role or not? So yeah. So before working as a fresher, how do you know that even though yeah you've mentioned like okay these are the skill sets, but how do I rate myself that if I will be good at it or not even before starting on something?
see there. So
So I
again,
mean what is the best way? Do you think one should actually go for internships and all that and then probably figure out whether they are really a good fit or not? What is
it's a
it?
lot of introspection one needs to do.
Hmm.
All right. So it's a lot of introspection. It's not about someone telling you should get into HR,
Correct.
because
Yeah.
it's a 9 9 to, it's actually not a 9 to 5 desk job. Trust me, it is not, and people think it is. So I'm thinking it's a misnomer, it's a myth.
Okay.
I work 12 hours, 14 hours a day. That's the kind of work I do. I mean, in
14
all the
hours a
work,
day.
in all the
Okay.
industries I've worked with. So I think you need to internally see what drives you. Again, I'm again saying it is again a very individual call. There is no right thing to be in HR. All right. Do you think some of the things you hear about people in an organization drives you, makes you worry about it? So a lot of things that I used to happen around when I was growing up and when I was pursuing, when I finally decided to take up HR, and I realized that there's a lot of things that happens and everyone favors the management, and why the employees are never heard of it. It used to really intrigue me why it is not. And when, if I become an HR manager, I am going to do this right, or I'm going to do this the right way. So I'm saying there is no right skill. Again, it is not a rocket science. You are going to get into an MBA college. You will learn what is the basics. You will learn everything. But I am saying, do you feel passionate about something you want to do? And it's about your own passion, all right? You can be very passionate about, say, numbers, and say, therefore you want to get into, say, finance. You can be very passionate about being creative. And many of us, and there are so many people who, in our own batch, who took up HR and they left HR and they pursued because they thought, after get from being in TISS, they went and did their IAS, they went and did their civil services, they went and did their, I would say, their startups. And there were many people who joined from, say, Investigation Bureau of India. All right, they have come from Raw. They went into
Okay.
RW and they come and joined HR. So I'm saying, what is your calling? You need to understand what is your calling. It cannot be, say, I tell you and you do it, because you will not be happy at that job at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
So when I realized that I had to shift from journalism to this, I actually introspected, do I really want, and where is that people and when, and what I really wanted to contribute, and therefore will I be able to contribute here? So understand that calling for yourself.
Okay. There's an interesting question about, there is a myth I've heard of that HR is a popular MBA specialization among women. Is this true? Yeah.
You see the industry, most of the HR heads are men. All right.
Okay.
So again,
There you go. How would you define the terms performance coach and headhunter? These are all these jargons that, headhunter, performance coach.
So headhunting, again, I don't like the word headhunting. Why would you?
Yeah.
And this batch, kids will go back and saying she does not like half of the things that that is there. Why headhunting? Why that term? I don't know. But headhunting is generally about, I mean, in the real sense, it's about mapping the top talents. And it goes very well with the talent, say, in the hiring industry. So they will map the right talent, those who are actually at top level, the C-suits, and they will then map them to the industry they may want to move them into. So that is literally headhunting in the real sense, hiring and moving the C-suit. Generally, it is the topmost layer, the cream layer of the organization, who get headhunted, so to say, poached and moved into the other industry. All right. And the other question, the other term was about, what was the other term that person asked?
Performance coach. Yeah,
performance is more about when you are at a very senior level, okay? And there is so much of pressure, because there's a top line pressure, there's a financial pressure, there's people related pressure, there's a stakeholder. So when we are talking about stakeholder, there is the government, there is the industry, there are shareholders. There is a lot of pressure on you, and performance coach are the people who actually help you, coach you into what are the right things to do for you to do in your position. So it's a very different thing than, say, hiring and placing them into the right. So performance coach is a very different thing. It's an extremely specialized field. So, and you need to take certification into coaching and do a lot of coaching yourself, hours and hours of coaching to become a performance coach.
Okay. What's the difference between an HR consultant and an HR manager?
HR consultancy, generally HR consultants are the one, mostly, I mean, and again, this term gets interchangeably used across industry. So if you talk about the KPMGs and the Big Fours and the consulting firm, they call everyone consultant. They're the ones who will actually come and consult with your firm. They will be an external consulting firm, will consult with another firm and tell them these are things you need to change in order to maximize performance or reduce costs or increase production, all of those things. Okay, so they are generally the consultants. And then the HR manager is generally the team within the say the organization who work with the internal stakeholders, so your employees, your managers, and do. But many, so in my industry, we call HR manager also as consultants, because again you are actually dealing with a lot of people, and therefore you are consulting them with them to do a lot of work. So it is a really interchangeably used. But if you in a broader sense, consultants are more with these consulting firms who will consult the organization, and HR managers generally, typically and stereotypically, are the ones who work for an organization and work for the employees.
Okay. How stressful is an HR role? Of course, depending also on the seniority of that position and all that. Also, can you take my other question along with it, which is, can you talk about one challenging situation that you've had, and how did you overcome it in HR? Yeah.
So again, HR role, I would say, adds on to a lot of your mental space. All right, and I'm talking about because you deal with people and you deal with a lot of emotions, and these are many of them. More often than not, you deal with negative emotions, right?
Yes.
And you need to give a lot of your heart and mind to, if you're going to really do this. It takes a lot of out of you emotionally, mentally. And many people, and I know there's tons of joke that goes around with HR professional being this, that. I'm saying, but if you're a good, kind HR, if you're a good HR professional, I'm telling you, you are going to make a lot of difference. I'm saying from my own experience, there are people, I've led companies years back, and there are people who still come back to me and ask me for my opinion because I had added value to them in that point, at that point of time. All right. So it takes a lot from you as an individual. It can be very taxing in terms of, and if you are, and again, I'm coming from, because I'm an introvert, and we generally tend to have a lot of these emotions, right? And maybe an extrovert may not absorb because the kind of person they are. I'm saying it takes a lot of emotional balancing, all right, because there is pressure of work, there are deliverables, there are timelines, and then there is all people and emotions that happens, all right. I would say you asked me about one of the challenging roles. So I worked with Abbott, and Abbott has all of these unions, all right, and you need to deal with them, and there are difficult employees who will not work, and have been in the company for years. They have been in the company for 20, 25 years, and there is no way in which you can make them work, all right, and because they're protected by the unions. And I remember I joined, and I was given this, and I joined recently, and it's a new industry for me, and I'm learning everything. And when I went and met these, and they made fun, and literally I get to make conversation, and there's all men standing, for 50 men standing, and there's one woman who's trying, and who's not from the industry, trying to talk with them. And they're like, they will look at you with smirk, and they will look at you like, oh, what is this girl going to do? And I had those interactions. I started finding out all of what are the senses that what is happening. And my boss said, we need to remove this person in the next 6 months because it's not happening. And I'm like, how will I do it? You all have not done it for so many years now. You are doing this business. So I know, and then the next 6 months, what I did is everything that happened. I mean, I think one piece where HR don't do well, and I think we should learn to document things, and it helps a lot. All right, I'm telling you from my own experience. And I started interacting with these people. I didn't come with any bias. I mean, if you have to do justice to your job, you should leave all your biases around outside, because you may have a very different experience, and you may have a very different knowledge about a person if you keep your biases outside. All right. So I started documenting whatever was happening. I started documenting, okay, we have told you to do this, you have not done it, and that's documented, and that document. And I kept documenting things, what the person did right, what the person didn't do right, and what the manager is doing right, the one the manager is not doing right. 6 months, I literally had this big file of what the person did not do right. And I went to my lawyer and said, this is what the case is now all about. You tell me, can we go to the labor inspector, and can we go to the industrial court, and can we have him removed? And my lawyer was extremely handy. Like, I never had such kind of a documentation that tells a person repeatedly, we've given you chance so many times, and still you're not coming up. And I was able to remove that person. So they said, and I'm telling you, in Abbott, I had done 6 termination, and I got my confirmation in 6 months. So they're like, you had to remove 6 people to get the confirmation. I was notorious for this. But I think you have to take those tough calls. You have to do that. So, and then what is good for business, you need to do.
Correct.
So
Yeah. You switched across industries in your career. Did the type of company you have worked for influence on applying to a new company?
No,
No.
not at all.
Okay.
I
Okay.
purely went by the role that I was being offered and what I really wanted to do next in my career. So there was nothing to do with where you get
Yeah.
option.
Okay. So, what does a typical day look like for you?
Typical day. I think I start my day. I literally block my own calendar because no one should. Otherwise, there's so many employee calls. So I block my 2 days, 2 hours in the morning, saying that I am busy, and it's my own calendar block where I finish off all my work. Then most of my 6-7 hours goes into a lot of these employee-related work, dealing with various stakeholders. Because I work currently, I work a lot with policies, making a lot of process changes. We work around Infosys is around 165 countries, and looking at 165 countries, there are different kind of technical issues, there are kind of process issues, policies issues, and there are so many changes that are happening across industries. So a lot of my 6-7 hours will go into a lot of these policies, processes, analytics, and then again I leave the last 2 hours again for myself, winding up the whole thing. So typically my day is around 10-11 hours, if not more. But starting 2 hours of my day, end 2 hours of my day is where I want to start what I want to finish do, and then hold it, and then wind up again 2 hours to myself, saying that okay, these are things we need to close, has to close, got closed. So that's my day like.
Right. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So before we wrap up, can you give us a few tips? Maybe one tip, one suggestion for profile building for for basically people who are right now planning for MBA. They are MBA aspirants. They're new. They don't know where exactly they will land up. But obviously, the ones who are who have joined us today would like to get into HR probably. So yeah, so if you can just give a suggestion maybe or a tip or two.
So again, you may not like me for this, but many times what we plan to do, it doesn't happen. All right.
Okay.
And we should always have a plan B. All right.
Okay.
So I am saying, I heard that question about I should I take a career break? Should I already have this? This lady planned about working where, and her personal situation did not allow to work in Ontario, right? There's
Correct.
someone who wanted to do. So I'm saying that, and whatever you pick up, I'm saying, and I'm getting into philosophy, like, and whatever you pick up, I think at the end of the day, you will realize it has been for your better. So don't get really constrained as to, okay, I want to do this. I'm telling you, I give you an example of a lot of people who wanted to really be in HR. They applied 3 years, 4 years in TS. After 4 years, they got into TIS. And after doing TIS, they left and did something else. So what we really want to do, after you get into it, you realize you may not want to do that because you've not seen that side of the story, right? It is, again, it's your version of it, right? So I'm saying you should always have a plan B, a fallback option. You should not, and you should not let that demotivate you, saying that I prepared for this, I worked so hard and I didn't get through and my life has ended. It's not ended. There is always something better that is awaiting you. So always have a plan B. There has to have a plan B, and you should be happy about what you're doing. So I'm saying it didn't happen. If you're so into I want this, then give your heart and soul. But if you know you've given your heart and soul to that, and if it's still not happened, then maybe something you are meant for something else, right? It's not always that you think is the right thing. We are too young, we are too naive at this point of time. 21, 22, 23. I'm saying have a point, plan B, and fall back on that. And I'm sure it's a huge career. That 35 years you need to literally work.
Correct. Yeah, in that. Yeah.
So by the time, so I'm saying have your options open. Do not really get stuck to this is going to be there, because again, it's your own priority. What you want to do, is time more important? Is money more important? Is your preference more important? Prioritize this. Write those things down. What is more important for you in life? Do you have a plan B? If not this, then what? And I mean, these are small, minor changes in life, and maybe take it as life has ended. It's not ended. There's so much more. So that's my. I know it's not adding. I don't know how much.
No, it has added. Actually, it's not just for them. It's for everybody to have. Yeah, that that space, as in not to get so stuck with one thing that because you don't know what's there.
To see children getting so stressed out at the age of 19, 20, 22. It's not worth it. It's not really worth it. Don't stress yourself out so much. I mean, it's not the end of the world. So If this not, there's another something other thing waiting for you. Don't worry.
All right. Okay, that's all we have time for today. I would like to thank all the attendees for the lovely questions. And also, thank you so much, Nisha, Atey. Thank you so much for giving all the insights about human resource and that other side, and answering all these questions and giving us all these insightful information about human resource management. You all can find her on LinkedIn, and you can ask your questions personally over there, or otherwise you can also write in to me and I will forward those questions to her. Thank you so much. Thanks again, Nisha, Atey. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure being here.